Tashid Emma. Minister, first of all, to congratulate you on your appointment. I know it's temporary and for a very good reason. Wish your predecessor, or your, she's not your predecessor, but wish Minister McEntee all the best in her future. A wonderful, joyous occasion. Hope all goes well. The digital scheme of the digital recording bill contained the objective to provide a legal basis for law enforcement use of body cameras, along with recording devices such as mobile phones. The proposal would also expand the use of cloud circuit television, CCTV footage, and automatic plate recognition technology. Emphasising the role of the technology in enhancing law enforcement practices, Minister McEntee said last May that employing controversial facial recognition technology could revolutionise the Garda to manage child exploitation, which is very serious, missing persons and murder cases. The technology would also help exonerate innocent parties by revealing their whereabouts at the time of the crime. Also, the bill, if enacted, would allow Garda to input an image of a perpetrator into a system that would then provide instant access to images of the suspect or those that resemble the suspect taken in public places. This process, according to the Department of Justice, would enhance the speed and facility with which Garda could locate and identify suspects, and we'd all welcome that. It would be great if that happened. These proposals have, however, been subject of significant criticism from the data protection and human rights perspectives, notwithstanding the fact that it will include a number of safeguards. For example, rigorous human rights and data protection impact assessments must, and I mean must, be completed before the legislation can be finalised, and the bill would need to comply with the General Data Protection Regulation and Data Protection Act, GDPR. While the original general scheme of the bill did not include the addition of facial recognition, and this is very important, Minister, and I want you to understand this, and I hope you do, technology, it's now almost certain that the use is to be pushed through by the government in committee stage. And that's not very good. I'm not in favour of that, because I want to say 1,000%, if I could, support in Garda Síochána. And the supports, and I have been all my life in Community Alert. We were the second Community Alert group in the country. We set up in Newcastle in 1985. I was still active and engaging. But there need to be, as I said, a two-way street here, and these changes need to be changed. And Minister, I attended a very pleasant function, and you know, it'd be nice sometimes to have a minister come to it. It's running now for 24 years. I was involved in it every year. It's the Care Garda Senior Citizens Party, and took place last Friday evening in Care House Hotel. And I couldn't say enough. The best PR machine that the Garda could do. They had about almost 200 senior citizens, and sat down for a meal, and very proudly facilitated by Care House Hotel. David and his staff there, and indeed also the Care Gardaí. But more than that, Superintendent Eddie Golden provided the music, wonderful band. Inspector Mark Allen attended and poured out the tea and the coffees and everything else with the community Gardaí. It was just spectacular. Transition year students from Colosh to do an East Kick. The McGrath School of Dance, which is, I claim she's my niece, I have a bit of declare an interest there, entertained them, and the Caremen's Shed, a group of 8, played for hours there. This went on from 4 o'clock in the evening, real party started at 5, but until maybe 10 that night. And indeed, as I said, the Colosh, I'm missing some other people, there are other acts as well that took part in it. And our new superintendent, who didn't meet, I want to compliment Superintendent Eddie Golden from Care Garda Station, where he's now transferred to Thurles. I also want to pay tribute to Derek Smart, Chief Super, who is now, he's gone elsewhere, and we've lost our Chief Super in Tipperary. But the community Gardaí team, Jenny Goff and Julie Davern, and indeed their colleagues, and they kindly got the loan of their Garda bus from Limerick Garda division and collected the people. And to see the older people being loaded into the, you'd think they were paddy wagons, but they weren't. Being not loaded in, it's the wrong word to you, but to being encouraged in and helped in. But the joy they had at that party, and the Gardaí, a green collection, the Dina Golair, and out in the uniforms. And as I said, the TYs and the Care Boy Scouts and Clonmel Scouts, massive mehel effort to bring joy. And there was no party for the last 2 years because of COVID. Great to be back. 24th year of it. A wonderful. This is all done by, and all the sponsors that volunteered sponsorship as well, and indeed some of the Care Choral Society as well, Care to Sing. There were all groups involved. They couldn't buy that kind of publicity, couldn't buy that kind of engagement from all the hinterlands of Ballyporeen, Skeenerinka, Ardfinnan, Carstlan, indeed Bancha, Kilmyler, and indeed Paulmucca and all those areas in New Inn. They were there from all around, and they were delighted to be back, and back with a bang. And I danced the night out with lots of myself, like Joe Dolan used to say, send them home sweating. By God, did I go home sweating. It was pouring off me, because I'm not as fit as I thought I was. But we had a great night, and I wanted to compliment them all on that. And all the activities that the community Gardaí do. But you don't support the Gardaí in enough of things, Minister. And that's why I'm saying this situation regarding the facial recognition, I have concerns about it. As I said, the Gardaí will be able to feed in images. The government seems, as I said, determined to push this through, and without any proper, this didn't go through pre-legislative scrutiny. The other parts of the bill did, and it must. Because while I want to give every tool of the trade I can to Garda Síochána, and I condemn anyone that attacks and spits or threatens or intimidates on Garda Síochána, or indeed takes videos in compromising positions. No, shouldn't be there. And the body cams, yes, but we must be awful careful how that videos are stored, and that they won't be released. Some have been released, some just hasn't been nothing body cam taken on phones, and we've seen that ourselves. And they can do awful damage. So, I mean, look, I'm a big supporter of Garda Síochána, but you have bad apples in every organisation. And we've seen things, and I myself was a victim of false allegations and brought through the courts, and it cost me a lot of money with legal representation. It's been 18 days in the circuit court and clear my good name. But Chinskelela, there's many areas I could talk to you about, and I hope to talk to you about Elisa Temple here from out your own constituency in Bray, or near Bray, and she was horrifically treated by Garda Síochána. And then a mob that came along, a heavy gang from the Bank of Ireland, thugs, no better than thugs, 18 of them into her house with 2 young daughters. And what went on there was obscene. Okay, but sure, it's happening under our eyes. And it's happening in your county too, and my county. And it was your county, Garda Síochána, that tried to get me locked up. But anyway, I know some of you here might like to have me locked up, but thank God, anybody on here has a good name. So, Minister, this is a worrying piece of legislation as well as everything else. The Irish Council for Civil Liberties, ICCL, alone, with 6 academics working in the area, wrote an open letter to the Minister for Justice in November, that's probably yourself, Minister, noting that the use of the FRT also raises serious and challenging issues about individual privacy and data rights. In a world where population levels, mass surveillance is no longer a dystopian fiction, but an easy implementation. And what we need, Minister, the last Minister, they would say, we need bodies, not body cams. The force is depleted. The force, we have only less than 100 in Temple Ward at the moment. We should have 300. We must examine the reasons why people are not taking up the option, young men and women, to join in Garda Síochána. We must make it a safe place to work. We must make it have respect for them, and we must have a rewarding for them, and we must all have backup for them. I mean, I had situations in this Rona, and you know, Minister, your predecessor met him, where we had huge attacks and marauding gangs going around, and guard on their own going up and down the street, maybe a vanguard or a guard, and they tell us we can't use that term anymore. I'll use it anyway. and on the morning, in the middle of the night, 3 or 4 in the morning, on their own, no backup. Your own town, Lismore, Cappoquin, all those areas, because I know where Mattie McGrath, numbers have been totally depleted. Garda stations that used to have a sergeant and 3 or 4 guards, they don't have them. And they need them, because the people need to see the physical presence of a Garda Síochána. They need that presence. Number plate recognition I'm on for, especially off the motorways, because these gangs that travel down the motorways and carry out heinous crimes. As I said, already people are growing increasingly normalised to FRTs to unlock phone handsets or move to airport passport control. Such uses produce databases of unique biometric facial identification that can be combined with larger profiling databases, which I resent. I totally object to it. Totally object to it. Because where is this data stored? Who has it? Big tech companies are making a fortune out of it. We're becoming monopolised as a human race. That shouldn't be happening. Technology is good to be used right and the right place. As the ICCL letter notes in Ireland, greater consideration and consultation, including with the Data Protection Commissioner, is needed before any such legislative proposals are even published. In addition, major EU-level legislation is pending, which considers FRTS and would potentially force an immediate changes to the rushed Irish legislation. Therefore, we make haste slowly here. Therefore, now is not the time for the Department of Justice or the government to rush such measures through this House. Civil liberty and privacy campaigners have expressed great concern over the move, highlighting that what they see as a possibility of discrimination. And we will see it, and we will see it. And you had me out my pace minutes ago about the Garda Síochána and the community Garda in Tipperary and the whole division. But we don't have enough of them. And then they pulled off the community crime. Take Clonmel, for instance. We're in a hovel of a Garda station. You couldn't describe it anything. Several ministers of justice and Taoiseach have visited. It was first raised in this chamber by the former Count Cole, Sean Tracy, who is now dead, I think 50 years ago. And we so badly need it. Now we've a site and planning and design and everything else, but no sign of them arrogant. You lumped it in, Minister, with, it was in the bundle of different Garda stations who fell off the train, Bandon and Clyco and wherever else, but it's now bundled in with another Garda station, I think it's in Cork, but it's also in a bundle with the Children's Law Court. Now, to get a builder for design, build and design and build or whatever, the law court is a completely different animal to a Garda station. Because they're normally a fine facade and a fine big building like we have the new courts out near the Phoenix Park. So they're totally different architects, totally different designs, totally different buildings. So that should be removed from that. Let the Children's Court be on a separate contract, because you're digging in fishing in a different pond for different kind of builders and architects and designers and everything else to deliver. It's a different project completely. And I don't know why it's put in here. I do believe it's put in for a delaying tactic, but that would be wrong. Minister, the prison service then as well, I would like to just pay tribute to the indulgence of the chair with Chief Officer Trevor Darling, just retired only the last 10 days from Limerick Prison, one of the real good prison management officers, and also to wish well to soon to retire the Governor Peter O'Brien, Cork, also a highly respected prison officer, and he's to resign very soon, who's given an excellent service. Same with the Gardaí, all the retired Gardaí. Many of them who come back to that function last week, as I said, and glad that they gave their service and survived. We know a number of Gardaí have paid the ultimate sacrifice of giving their life. And we saw what happened up in Drogheda, not Drogheda, but you know what I'm talking about, that post office, that Lordship Credit Union. I mean, the people that go out and cold-blooded assassinate a member of Garda Síochána, there's no truck for that in this country. And indeed, it shouldn't be tolerated, or any kind of, but as I said, where there are complaints procedures, then, and there must be proper channels and processes to allow those complaints. And I find a lot of time in my clinics, people coming in, they have issues with different Gardaí and different Garda stations. So if there was this facial recognition and the body cams will have to be very sensitively used. And you mentioned body cams and CCTV. But the schemes are held up in my town in Fethard, in Clonmel, all over County Tipperary, held up for years over data storage from the county council and the gas for years. I actually, as chairman of community elected in my group, installed one of the first ones back 20 years ago in Clonmel, a little village. And the Garda made us take it down, in spite of the fact that the Garda Crime Prevention Officer at the time, his name eludes me, he's retired now, had come out and okayed it and told us where to put him. And it was in a community house, Tignadina, a wonderful place that we have, and it was locked, and the Gardaí would have the key of the secure cabinet, and they could only access it. But we had to take it down. That left some bad tastes in the community, because we had fundraised for it, cost us about 6,000 at the time, and we had to remove it. And side by side with that then, even that week, I think, or shortly afterwards, the Gardaí regularly go into shops. My sister has a shop owner in the village, and they go into shops in Paris, and they often solve crimes by looking at the CCTV, the private CCTV. So I can't understand why we're so long objecting and so long delaying the community CCTV, because they often use, and I know of a woman in the halfway bar, it's closed now, chairman, your area again, she was beaten up and robbed one night, but in the Ballymacary Community Centre, Síochána got or Chin, and the CCTV was identified a number passing, and they were able to solve that crime and get that criminal for the heinous crime he carried out because of the help of. But yet we couldn't put up the ones in the community. I mean, too much red tape and too much baloney and too many issues. Clonmel needed a scheme renewed, and it is being renewed now and extended. And I want to salute the workers in the council and in Garda Síochána, members who are trying to make this go forward. But it's been fairly slow. And I'm on to attend most of the JPC meetings, the county ones. It's been discussed there ad litem, but there's no replacement for the man on the beat. There's no replacement that we have. An excellent guard now, we had an excellent guard in Newcastle, and he succumbed to cancer, Garda Sergeant Niall O'Halloran, and he was tremendous. Because he was on duty 24/7, even though he wasn't rostered. Most people that wanted his mobile had it. We now have Garda John Welsh, who came out to us, and thanks to Superintendent Gordon for leading them out to us and making sure he's staying in our three parishes, well, more than three parishes, Newcastle, Alphin and Ballybeg and Grange, and indeed covering other areas where we get Philly Ryan and Garda Donovan from Ballyporeen. They do an excellent job, and the people know. They have to know the people, because if you go in to sign a form, whether it be a passport or something else, and the guard will say hello, and Pat or John or Mary or whatever, and they get a kind of confidence, and they will say, something might jig their mind that they saw something or whatever. That could be the solving of a crime, but they have to have that two-way street of respect for the Gardaí and they respect the community. Minister, you want to have the support to text alert groups, because they're paying, fundraising every day to try and send out, to keep the texts going out for crime. It is the Gardaí who decide when to send them out, because, you know, when there's a suspicious vehicle, and I'm not saying they send them out foolishly or anything like that, but it's an awful drain on the community alert groups, and that should be funded. Like, it's good enough, it's a great backup for the guards, and it has ran criminals out of communities because people mobilised and just got the guards and were around in cars and kind of mehel again, not advocating violence or anything like that, but just frightened them off, and they left the area. So the text alert is a wonderful system. And the property marking, which is being rolled out now nationally from the Tignadina that I mentioned in Newcastle, in Costanio, you must come sometime and visit it. The previous Justice Minister, the late Brian Linehan, visited back all those years ago. So that property market is vital. Everyone knows they have to be able to identify their property and be able to, you know, there's proper numbers and properly armed with proper equipment. And my colleague, Senator Shannon Cogan, actually sponsored one of those machines, and she gives it to different communities. They're expensive, they have to be trained to use them, but they really are brilliant, because if a lost item is found, a stolen item is found, and often the Gardaí have warehouses full of stuff that people can't identify because they have that's my machine, and that's my expensive Hoover, that's my expensive lawnmower, but they have no identification on it. They can't claim it. Whereas the property marking is very important. You have the property number, turn the machine upside down, some parts on it in a secret place, can't be rubbed off with, and it's there and is paired up with the thing, and the equipment is returned to the rightful owner. So, Minister, I wish the bill well, but there's a lot of teasing out in this, and you have to make haste slowly, as I said, and you have to take this facial recognition, because it's not that too many people are opposed to it, and I'm opposed to it too. I would like to vote against the whole bill just to stop that part of it.